to do with the company that employs Mr. Burnett being the lobbyist for Johnson Controls. Are there any questions anybody has, Mr. Burnett or Mr. Shuren, on this point?
Just a couple. What does Johnson Controls do?
How much time have you got?
Not enough for the full vote. Can you break it down into the 10-second version?
Johnson Controls is a Milwaukee-based billion-dollar company that does heating and cooling. That's how most people know them. This thermostat is most generally associated with Johnson Controls. They also make auto parts, particularly, I believe, Delco batteries. They came to me, and they're a multi-billion-dollar company throughout the world. They came to me in 1997, or late 96, and said, we'd like you to help us convince the City Council of Kansas City that they could save heating and cooling dollars in convention and entertainment complex. Barlow, Kemper, the Music Hall, Municipal Auditorium, Hale, and American Royal Hale. And so we began a long process, my business partner Jim Burke and I, talking to the City Council about performance contracting. And a very short story on that. If Johnson Controls came into your home, they do an energy audit, and they might find that this light bulb is 100 watts, but there's now a light bulb that's 17 watts that uses, the 17th of the power but provides twice as much energy. And so they went through the Convention and Entertainment Complex of Kansas City and found that they could save $1.1 million a year in energy savings by doing a retrofit. And state law allows them to do that over a 10-year period. We came to Kansas City, and Jim Burke and I helped explain this to the City Council and to Tom Bean, and was the city architect, and to others, that $11 million could be saved over 10 years, and that Johnson Controls would guarantee that savings each year, and they would do an energy model, computer energy data model of heating degree days against the heating degree days of today. Let's say is 65 and it's 57, so that would all go in the computer model. And at the end of the year, if Johnson Controls hasn't saved the city of Kansas City $1.1 million, then they write a check to Kansas City. And Johnson Controls does this throughout the world. So it's a heating and cooling company that has a long-term contract with Kansas City. They have done the police station, the municipal court is being worked on, City Hall, and then they came to Jackson County. And I've recused myself of those of you, Mary and Joe, who's been in the meetings. I've publicly announced each time that I work for Johnson Controls in other avenues. I've talked to the Belton schools about Johnson Controls. I've talked to other school districts, Southwest Missouri State, it's now called Missouri State University. I help Johnson Controls sell performance contracting in this region. They have done work and continue to do work for Jackson County. I've made it very public that I just don't get involved in that. Leland says that's enough.
You wouldn't answer the question.
It's what we've done. They help save energy, and then they let cities borrow against that savings to make improvements, and oftentimes there's money left over.
And you said that whenever there's been an issue regarding Johnson Controls before the county legislature, you've recused yourself and announced that your association with Johnson Controls.
That's correct.
And so would it be a fair statement to say that you have not personally benefited or received any funds as a result of the county contracting with Johnson Controls if it chooses to do so?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on point 2? Any discussion among this staff?
Just one thing. You were elected in 99, you say?
August of '98, the primaries usually hit. There was
When did you take office?
January 1st, 1999.
Okay. January 1st, 1999, and you were engaged by Johnson Controls prior to that time?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
In 1996 or 97, I think you said?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
I'm not clear, Scott. Are you still, except for Jackson County?
I still work for Johnson Controls.
Just want to make sure.
Yes, that's correct.
Any discussion on point 2?
They're one of my clients. I don't work for them as an employee.
I understand.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's not uncommon to have an elected official whose employment conflicts with the jurisdiction he's working for. So the ethical thing to do then is to recuse yourself, not participate, not lobby. Again, there's a suspicion that was done. The minutes of the meetings show that he abstained from voting, so we don't have any evidence that there was anything wrong taking place.
And in fact, there's evidence that he followed the correct procedures in the instances when it was appropriate to do so.
Based on what we know, that's correct.
Right. To the extent we have evidence, it's that evidence.
Anything more to say on point 2? Point 3, having to do with the purchase of a building by Jackson County in which Mr. Burnett's brother-in-law, who I know, was the agent responsible for the sale. Any questions of Mr. Burnett or Mr. Schmidt?
We have a letter from the chief deputy county counselor, which is exhibit 10, mentioning that Mr. Burnett brought this to his attention and abstained from being involved in the deputy county counselor says his recollection is that Scott did not participate in the process and did not vote or otherwise attempt to influence the actions of the negotiated timber's purchase. And again, based upon what we know, the information we have is that it was not appropriate. We don't have to go into whether he personally could have benefited from some relative. Typically, the thing involved the immediate family, personal aggrandizement, some
Let me be clear. Scott did not benefit in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Okay. I couldn't hear because the phone was ringing.
The
The
point I made is that suppose there were some involvement to influence. We have no evidence he tried to influence.
Didn't happen.
The point I was making, if he did try to influence, would there have been an ethical violation if it was a relative who benefited instead of himself? I mean, we don't have to even get to that question.
And I'll say that I can recall very few instances where I've benefited from my relatives.
Especially brother-in-law.
Christmas is kind of grim at your house, huh?
There's a benefit they get it.
Any more on point 3? How about the whole package here? What is your pleasure?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what procedures we're employing, but if we are applying the standards of preponderance of the evidence, then there is no evidence that has been supplied to support the allegations. And in fact, if I recall point number 2 correctly, it's more of a question as opposed to even an allegation, although it's a it's a question phrased and toned as an allegation. The fact of the matter, from my perspective, is that